you're an idiot. You've been teaching the chiropractic paradigm of health and healing for 25 years. There must be something seriously wrong with your spine and nervous system.
Yeah.
Well, my second thought was, how could it be? I get checked by a chiropractor like every week or two and get adjusted when necessary. But Dr. Brian, what really awoke me, and for everybody else listening in, was the third thought. Never by the same chiropractor. I was not a practice member in any practice, and I thought I was under regular chiropractic care.
Welcome, Genesis Nation, where we're helping leverage technology so that you can create your dream practice. And I am not only honored, I'm humbled to have my friend and colleague, Dr. Gilles LaMarche with Life University. So your actual title is the Vice President, I have to read this one, of University Advancement and Enrollment at Life University. And I had the privilege of speaking on stage at Life University probably 10 years ago at this point, and that's when we first met. So before we even get started, I just want to thank you for being at the tip of the spear of this profession and constantly pushing all of us chiropractors to be better humans, living a life of responsibility and really just thriving at life. And then that all trickles down to what our patients are getting and obviously the students. So you've been a speaker, a professional speaker, you've been an author, you've helped chiropractors write books, but really today's focus, I want to focus on like what's going on at Life University, because it is, this in my eyes, because I'm an alma mater, it's the pinnacle and the pun on the word here, the genesis of so many amazing chiropractors. So can you give us some updates of what's happening?
Well, first of all, it's an honor to share this time with you, Dr. Brian, and obviously with your audience. And I'll tell you, you talked about being honored and humbled. I mean, I'm honored and humbled every single day that I drive on this phenomenal campus. I'm currently a member of the U.S. Track and Field Masters Division. So I'm on Team USA Masters Division, and I was on our track this morning training and realizing, the bliss that you experience when you're on a campus like this. There really is no other place in the chiropractic world like Life University. And for those who have never been here, I encourage you to come and visit. But what's happening at Life? So we remain, the largest single campus chiropractic college on the planet. We have a phenomenal president in Dr. Rob Scott. Again, some people don't even know the name Dr. Rob Scott, but Dr. Scott has been a chiropractor himself for some 30 years, I would say. I think he came to Life about 15 years ago, was the vice president of academic affairs, and became president about 5 years ago. And what's lovely about Rob is he's got 5 academic degrees. And you say, well, what's lovely about that? Well, he's also the only chiropractic college president on the planet to also have a diplomate in chiropractic philosophical standards.
Wow.
So he's got a PhD. He's got a PhD in physiology. And so he has this ability, if you ever get an opportunity to hear him speak, you got to just sit there and just listen. He has this amazing ability to bring physiology and chiropractic philosophy together and show you why chiropractic is real. Why chiropractic literally changes people's lives. Why everybody on the planet should discover the value of getting checked for subluxations and getting subluxations corrected when appropriate. So I love to tell people principled chiropractic is alive and well at Life University. Are we perfect? No. We still have growth to do, but a lot of the work that we've been doing, and we're going to focus on your technology aspect, has been how do we enhance the learning outcomes for our students, and how do we leverage technology to do that?
Awesome.
So we were the first to invest a lot of money in our anatomage tables. So if you haven't heard about that, just Google anatomage. So ANATOMAGE, anatomy, anatomage.
Please tell me this is like a 3-dimensional kind of model for anatomy.
It is.
That's awesome.
So imagine a huge iPad that has stored within it 5 corpses that used to be real people. These corpses were fully digitized after they were, for lack of a better term, sliced and diced, right?
Yeah.
They froze them, they sliced them, they took pictures, the computer put it all back together. And so our students are no longer doing cadaveric dissection. So you get, oh yeah, but dissection, it was so cool when I went to chiropractic school. Dissection.
I'm thinking that right now.
Of course, that's what you think. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
But imagine an anatomy lab with no bad smell.
Yeah.
Right? Imagine an anatomy lab where you don't have to spend 30 minutes to cutting away fat or scar tissue to find a nerve root. Imagine an anatomy lab where if you cut the nerve that you were looking for, you can actually put it back together so that the next group of students doesn't see a destroyed corpse, but sees it intact.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So if you think of it from that perspective, you still have a cutting tool on this anatomage table. It's a virtual scalpel, but you can cut and you can look. You can create a transection of the body. For example, you can do a full sagittal section of the entire body and then open it up.
That's awesome.
And see it from the inside, whether you do a midline sagittal section or you do a sagittal section that's, a third in or whatever you want. You can just do it and look at that entire structure that way. So the enhancement of the viewing and of the learning is way superior to cadaveric dissection. And what's wonderful is that the learning outcomes are also superior.
Yeah,
so the students have a better grasp, a better understanding of the anatomy, so that when they're in palpation class, when they're in their adjusting classes, they understand how all of it works, because you can literally break it all down. When the anatomage, for example, if you ask a question, well, how does that nerve exit from here, and how does it go from here to there, and what does it actually do? With a touch of a finger, you can remove the skin. You can remove one muscle or all the muscles. With a touch of a finger, you can bring it all down just to the spine or to the entire skeletal structure. So just imagine you've got a corpse, and now you say, well, let's just look at that corpse skeleton. Beep, 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 boom.
So it's a lot.
It's a skeleton.
Technology has progressed a lot more than
exactly
just we used to flip to have the layers of the body. Now,
exactly.
Can the students, or the students still have to go to an actual lab to use this table? They're not. Are they doing this remotely also?
No, they're a lab. We currently have 8 of those tables in the lab. They're about $80,000 a piece. It was a big investment.
Yeah,
it was a huge investment to do that. No, they go to lab classes. They have a professor and they have their lab lessons. And when they do head and neck, for example, they're focusing on head and neck. When they're doing skeletal, they're focusing on that, or musculoskeletal. So, like I said, just imagine you take everything off and now you have the skeleton, and you say, okay, well, let's add this nervous system to the skeleton. Now let's see from a chiropractic perspective, with no organs in the way, how does the spine really interact with neurological structures?
That's amazing.
And then you can add whatever you want. You say, okay, I want to add the heart, and then look at the neurological structures that actually feed the heart. So you add the heart, then you add the lungs if you want to. You can add the liver. You can add one organ after the other, whatever you want. You can start adding parts to it. And then as much as you have ways of removing it, you have the same way of adding them back in. So that's actually phenomenal. So that's one piece of technology that the university invested in about 7 years ago. I came to Life about 10 years ago, and it was shortly after I got here that we invested in that technology. They still have a dry lab as well. So we obviously still have all the anatomical models if you want to get your hands involved with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, oh, you're going to love this. And then 3 years ago, after about 3 years of research, 2 of our researchers in our research department are chiropractors as well as engineers. So they had worked on the evolution of a mannequin for both palpation and adjusting as the first learning tool.
Yeah,
not to replace hands on a human, but to be the first piece. You and I probably remember, you graduated much after me, but you probably remember how you felt after technique class when I
was getting sore and sick, but we just muscled through it.
You just had to muscle through it, right? I know that I experienced the same thing. I know that when we were developing our thrusts, I don't know if you did this, but we had pieces of a tire that had been sort of screwed to a 2x6, I think it was, and you would learn to develop your thrust.
Yeah, of course.
This way. Well, through the beginning of COVID, we did close for one quarter because we were forced to we were forced to close for the first quarter. But our researchers, along with some of our work study students, built out this model. So they initially had, like their beta test, but it just looked like a spine with a bunch of foam around it.
Yeah.
Well, lo and behold, somebody had this bright idea of, what if a special effects movie studio could build a body around this?
Wow.
And we found I say we, I wasn't involved in it. Somebody at the university,
Your team,
found
yeah.
a special effects movie studio that obviously was not working. They happened to be about 1,000 meters from Life University in a warehouse, literally across the street from Cobb Parkway. So they built the first one, and then they built 19 others.
Wow.
So we have 20 mannequins that have 63 sensors built into them, electronic sensors, from the occiput to the pelvis.
That's amazing.
They developed a very cursory software program that links the mannequin to a computer screen. What you see on the computer screen is the entire spine and pelvis. But when the student is pressing, they can tell exactly where they're palpating, because the sensors in the mannequin are actually communicating with the computer screen.
Wow. And can it give you like force feedback and how much pressure you're putting on?
So not full force feedback in the mannequin alone, but if it's too much force, it turns red.
Okay.
So when you're touching somewhere, you get a green light. If you overstress it, you get a red light.
That's awesome.
Now, in addition to that, we also have a mannequin that is on a force plate. So on a table that is a force plate, and there they learn to develop their thrust. So they start learning to thrust on the mannequin alone, and then they get some time that's spent on the force plate mannequin that then communicates based on the wave patterns directly on the wall, like a huge screen on the wall, so they can see, I thrusted and I did this, or
wow,
I didn't take out the slack and I came up and then I went down. Well, you're going to hurt somebody if you do that. So that technology is all embedded in that system, so that as our students learn first their palpation skills, then they learn their thrust skills, then they learn to control the depth of the thrust by doing what? By developing their speed.
That's awesome.
By taking the slack off and getting on it and then thrusting. So that's all speed related. And so all that is visible to them.
Yeah.
They get immediate feedback compared to when I went to school, where the feedback was like, ouch, you pressed too hard.
Well, yeah, then you got to deal with the emotional aspect of hurting your friend. Yeah, which is no good. I mean, you guys have created a chiropractic technological dojo. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Oh, I'm telling you, the next time you're on campus, you want to come and visit, you want to see this, you can go to the Life University YouTube channel and just put PAT mannequin.
Okay.
PAT stands for Patient Adjustment Trainer. Patient and Adjustment Trainer.
That's
so
awesome.
We have 20 PATs, and as this evolved, they've developed other sort of strategies as it relates to PAT. For example, a pregnant mom. So they've added a belly to one of the PATs.
Wow.
Like a silicone belly. How do you take care of a mom if you're going to do a side posture?
Yeah, of course.
Do a PDA adjustment? How do you manage that? Not everybody is an ectomorph. So, they've put a suit on one mannequin that makes it a lot bigger.
Oh,
but the technology is such that when you're palpating and adjusting on the mannequin, what you would feel is that you're working on a fit male body.
Right. And that's not everybody that walks into the office, of course. And
but it gives you at least the development of that skill.
Is this a proprietary product of Life University?
It is.
Are you guys like delivering this to other schools, or is it just at Life University?
Currently, it is just at Life University. There's been some tweaks to be done to it. Whether or not we decide to, let it go outside of the institution at this point in time, it is a Life University developed research product. It has been activated in the classroom for now almost 3 years.
Wow. Can
we've had it
students
in our
go, can
classrooms.
students like go in off time and use
Yeah,
it? Or-
they do have some they do have some open labs. I was with a professor there, obviously, to give them some guidance.
Yeah, yeah.
But I can tell you that, yeah, I practiced my thrust 15 minutes a day, starting probably my 6th month in chiropractic school. I practiced my palpation 15 minutes a day, every day.
Yeah.
And that's what allowed me to be a great palpator and a great adjuster. But
And
I'll tell you, if I had available that mannequin available, I'd be working on that every single day.
yeah, even better. You just go in and, you know, because it's not always as easy to adjust someone over and over and over. Obviously, we know that. So what can I'm like my mind is exploding as to what can occur with this. Can you put the mannequin on different tables? Like if you're doing a different technique, like I was a CBP practitioner, can you do drop adjustments or mirror adjustments, or are you just doing palpation techniques and different things?
Well, you could, but currently in that lab, they're just all flat benches. They're all like flat Gonstead benches. But absolutely, you could.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
mean, you can take that mannequin. So the mannequin weighs 75 pounds. You say, well, that's not a fit male. Well, that's because what they did is it's only a portion of a leg, and they built the leg out of very, very soft material, just so that, if you were learning a side posture move, for example, well, you need to have access to the leg to put it in that posture. But the mannequin weighs about 75 pounds.
Okay.
All the electronic components in it. So yeah, you can turn it on its side, you can turn it on its back, you can lay it on its tummy, and you just make sure that the USB cable is plugged into it, so it's actually communicating with the computer screen.
So what else is coming up through Life University? I know we've got Life Vision Extravaganza that's coming up later in the year. What other well, if there are other technologies, I definitely want to hear about those. But what events and things, like how can we support, because Life is pushing the profession forward consistently.
So yes, we have Life Vision Extravaganza. For those of you who are life grads or have heard, it used to be called Fall CE. So every fall there was a continuing education event. It was always held on campus. Hovering in the last, 2019, we had, I think, 1,756 or 52 chiropractors that came to it was a chiropractor only event.
Wow.
And obviously the first pandemic year, we had it's virtual, a little bit, hybrid. We had a few 100 people on campus. The following year, it got big again, and not quite as big, but last year I think we had 1,646 chiropractors attend this event. It's always been held on campus, but it was being held in like 13 rooms with 13 sessions going on at any one time, because such a huge population of chiropractors all at one place at the same time. So this year, for the first time, we're actually moving it off-site to the beautiful Cobb Galleria Conference Center here in Atlanta.
Great.
That has a ballroom that sits 2,000 people. That event is happening September 28th to the 30th.
Awesome.
And if people don't know about it, if you want to register, you want to know more about it, you can go. We're still
put all those links below for sure.
Yeah, so it's fallce.life.edu.
Okay.
Is the URL that you can go to register. Currently, registration for the 3-day event is still only $79.
I mean, that's
and you can get,
there's tons of vendors there. I know we'll be there as Genesis, and I know a lot of other of our colleagues and people on the business side of chiropractic are all going to be there. So great opportunity for all of us to learn about what's out there, what's new, what's coming up.
And you can get up to 24 hours of CE. So we do the $79 for the first 1,000 people to register. Then it goes up to $179. And we count on great vendors and great sponsors like Genesis and others who support the institution to actually keep the cost of the event as low as possible and create the camaraderie that we know we've got to get together. I mean, especially in the last 3 years, there's been less and less people getting together, but that sense of community that is so powerful in the chiropractic profession when we're together is what we've decided to create. And instead of having, 100 people in this class, 100 in that one, 60 in that one, 200 in that one, we said, let's put them all in a room for a portion of the program. So we'll have the big ballroom. We'll also have 2 other breakout sessions with great sessions going on. So you can look at the program. So that's definitely a big piece of where Life University is working at building a signature event for the East Coast of the United States for obviously our alumni and friends.
Yes.
At Life University, as you probably know, we don't just refer to our alumni association as the Life University Alumni Association. It's the alumni and friends, because so many of our colleagues who may have graduated from other institutions that
they come
today are maybe no longer principled like their chiropractor wish they would be. come to life because they vibrate with what it is that we teach our
Yeah.
students at life. So principal chiropractic is alive and well. That message has got to be strong and clear with the present that we have, as I said. You know, the aspect and the philosophy of vitalism, it is thriving. And we pride ourselves on delivering a great product to our students while they're here, so they can be amazing chiropractors when they graduate.
Wonderful.
I'm going to address the elephant that sometimes shows up in the room.
Please.
We are the largest single campus chiropractic institution on the planet. We are, the statistics and the data that we put out are directly in line with what is required by the CCE. So some people say, well, your graduation rate is lower. Well, important to note, we are also the most diverse chiropractic college on the planet. And we allow our students to do their education at the speed that they want to do it at, which means it may take them more than the 4-year program. And many of them choose that. Many of them choose that because they don't have an economic choice where they're having to work. So they may be taking, you know, instead of taking a full load of 15 or more credit hours, they may be taking 6 1 year or 1 quarter because they don't have the money. So they're working harder. So that ends up being an issue. So it seems it skews the graduation data, because the graduation data that we put out is based on what's required by the CCE, which is what percent of your students graduate in 150% of the time of the program or less. Well, we have some that graduate later. So if you look at a graduation rate of whatever, 80%, it doesn't mean that only 80% of our students graduate, but it means that 80% of them graduated in 150% or less. What happened to the 12% that graduated in 162%? They're not counted in the data. Yeah. That's publicized. So that's often the elephant in the room that people ask when they look at data. So I think it's important for, all of our colleagues listening in to understand that. So yes, the majority of our students who matriculate here and get through the program, graduate, pass their boards, and go on to practice.
Great. And we definitely need more well-trained chiropractors. So before we close up, thank you for sharing like all of this. I want to pivot a little bit because I know you've been an author and a coach and you're doing more of this work now, but can you leave us with, I'm very intrigued by your book, The Art of Responsibility. And, can you give us some summary points there of ways we can take more responsibility? And I'm assuming you're talking about taking responsibility for your own health, but perhaps these can be things we can share with our patients.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, I woke up one morning with this thought. I'd been upset about something that happened, and it was 2 or 3 times in the previous week. That was probably back in 2007, 8, 9, or something like that, where people just weren't taking responsibility. And I was like, how could we help people be more responsible? Well, then obviously it reflected on how I had been irresponsible for many years with my own health, not knowingly. So I don't have time to tell the whole story today, but some people know that, I was diagnosed with the terminal conditions in 2003. I retired from practice in 2004, and I went home to do my final preparations because I was going to die. So I had primary pulmonary hypertension. My secondary diagnosis was cardiomegaly, measured at 2.5, which means my heart had expanded to this. And lo and behold, I ended up in a medical doctor's office because one of my team convinced me to go. And that's where the diagnosis was given to me.
Yeah,
and the prognosis was death within 2 years or less. And you need a double lung and heart transplant. And if you do that, you might live 5 years instead of 2. I opted to not go for the procedure. And I retired on the 14th of April in 2004. And on the 15th of May, 31 days later, 2004, 31 days later, I woke up and I was like, you're an idiot. You've been teaching the chiropractic paradigm of health and healing for 25 years. There must be something seriously wrong with your spine and nervous system.
Yeah.
Well, the second thought was, how could it be? I get checked by a chiropractor like every week or 2 and get adjusted when necessary. But Dr. Brian, what really awoke me, and for everybody else listening in, was the third thought. Never by the same chiropractor. I was not a practice member in any practice. And I thought I was under regular chiropractic care. I wasn't a practice member. I hadn't had a thorough examination in probably 3 decades. I hadn't had an x-ray of my spine in probably at least that long. I hadn't had a nerve scan in at least that long. Nobody did regular reevaluations. I didn't book appointments. Nobody had a chart on me in my community.
You just show up to this office, that office, whenever
Yeah,
you
well, if you and I went out for lunch today, I'd say, hey, Brian, you want to come to my office or go to your office? You can check me and I can check you.
Right.
And next week, I'm having lunch with a different chiropractor. And the following week, maybe I'm having lunch with another colleague, because we were in the small town I was in, we were very tight. We got along really, really well, all of us together. So we hung out together. And that was the level of care I was under. And when all the noise died down in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to go for, like, I've got to be a patient.
Yeah. Like
at a practice.
From A to Z. Yeah.
So I called my former office manager. I made an appointment in my former practice. I went and got checked by the chiropractors, a person in my practice. And lo and behold, we discovered that my spine looked pretty great, except it was a complete mess from C7 to T4.
Yep.
Well, all of us know the Merrick chart. And you know, a lot of the government heart and lung functions come from T1 to T4.
Yep.
So within 90 days of getting daily care, 5 days a week, I was getting checked and adjusted. My pulmonary pressure dropped from 57 millimeters of mercury pressure to 27. Normal is 15.
Love it.
But in 90 days, it dropped to 27. It took about a year for it to be fully normal. And by the second year, and I wasn't going 5 days a week anymore, obviously, right?
Right.
Based on what was required. But within 2 years, I no longer had cardiomegaly. Well, everybody says, well, that's a miracle. And I said, well, no. You can, I mean, I believe in God, but is it a miracle? No, the reality is that the human is the miracle. We are the miracle. And when the interference was removed from my spine and nervous system, my body healed and started functioning again the way it was designed to function.
Yeah.
Right. And my cardiomegaly occurred because my body adapted to the back pressure. When the back pressure was no longer there, my heart went back to its normal size. And now I'm proud to say I'm a member of Team USA.
You're not just running. That's not distance running. You're running 400s, which is
I'm a 400-meter runner.
That is a hard race.
I had not competed in 50 years. I did my first competition in February of 2023, so just a few months ago. It was the Southeast region of the United States Track and Field Association Championship, and I won, which was like weird, right?
Yeah.
I ran in the national championship in Louisville, Kentucky on the 10th of March. And I unofficially won again, but I officially got disqualified because I stepped on the white line twice in the first curve. And then I had the pleasure of being a member of Team USA at the World Indoor Championships in Poland, in Torun, Poland.
That was recent.
March. Yeah, at the end of March. We're now talking in May.
Yeah.
And I ran the semifinals. I didn't make it to the finals. Competition was fierce. But I'll tell you, I've got a team of people that work with me. I've got a coach, I've got a neurochiro, I've got, sports chiro. I have my wife who's also a chiropractor who's coaching me on certain things to actually improve my balance and all that. So I've got a team of people working with me because I recognized last July that this year would be the 20th anniversary of my terminal diagnosis.
Wow.
I thought, what if I could this chiropractic story from supposed to be dead in 2005 to maybe winning or at least medaling at the World Championship in 2025.
Yeah.
So my goal is, and I'm public with the goal, because my goal is to medal at the World Championships in 2025. And if I do, I will tell the story at a much higher level because I think it will attract media.
Yes, definitely.
So every morning when I wake up, so I'm on the track 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, and then Thursday, Friday. So I was there this morning. I have not missed a day. I'm on the track 4 days a week. Doesn't matter on the temperature. Doesn't matter if it's raining. I'm on the track. And what inspires me to continue to do it is what if we could tell that chiropractic story?
Yeah.
Think about all the other chiropractic stories we can tell around that. The fact that we know that the power that made the body heals the body. We understand that. We know that all organic systems of the universe are conscious, self-developing, self-maintaining, self-healing, provided there's no interference. How do we get that message to the masses? So all of that, to go back to my book that I wrote more than a decade ago, The Art of Responsibility, I wrote it for that reason, to help people understand if we take personal responsibility for what we know to be true, we can change the course of our life. And we can change the course of other people's lives if they choose to take responsibility. So as chiropractors listening in, if you take full responsibility for what you know to be true, and you teach it, and you invite people into the paradigm, and they then choose to take full responsibility, imagine the impact.
Yeah. It's
Imagine the ripple of that little rock, that little pebble in the pond. Imagine the ripple that we're going to have. Does the world need what you and I know, Dr. Brian? Yes.
Yes.
Do they need it now more than ever before?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Your emotional and physiological turmoil.
And so we can't expect one person to do that. We can't expect chiropractic associations alone to do that. But you should join your association, by the way, right?
Yeah.
Everybody listening in, if you're not a member of your association, just pay your dues and somehow learn to get involved. You can't change by being on the outside, but you can change by being on the inside. Yeah. I mean, I was on the licensing board in Ontario where I practice, and I ended up going for 9 years when I did not want to run. I had a friend say, look, you could win your district because they're not appointed, those positions in Canada. They're actually elected. In the United States, you're appointed by the governor, but in Canada, you actually have to be elected by your peers. And though when you go to serve, you don't represent your peers, but you're still elected by your peers. So I had a friend keep calling me. He said, you should run for this. You'd be an ideal candidate. I was like, dude, I'm like way too busy for this. I've got a huge practice. I've got 3 kids. I had all the excuses in the world to say no. And then one day, so he didn't succeed in convincing me. I think it was the following year, there was another election. He says, Gilles, you've got to run for this. I said, Keith, his name was Dr. Keith Thompson, who I love, love, love. And we love each other. But he said to me, so go ahead and let those that are not successful chiropractors decide how to run the chiropractic profession.
Good point.
And it was like stabbing me in the heart. I was like, okay, dude, I got it. I'm going to run. Can you help me? Because I'm like busy. He said, I'm going to help you.
Right.
So we had to do the political thing. I'd never done any politics. I ran for this position and I won. And I said to him, and I'm only doing 1 term. It's a 3-year term. I'm doing 1 term and I'm out of there.
Yeah, of course.
it became so fulfilling to see that the principled chiropractic voice was now being heard by the public members who before maybe didn't have as much of a public understanding of principled chiropractic, that I stayed for 9 years. I ran for 3 consecutive terms, and that's the maximum you can stay. So I stayed for 9 years. So I encourage all of you, and I'll tell you, what I was able to provide to the organization was small in comparison to what it provided me. The learning experience that I gained by being on that board was absolutely phenomenal. And yes, I was fully engaged. And yes, I provided, to every meeting, I showed up prepared and I did my due diligence. But if we choose to show up at that level of responsibility as individual chiropractors, that is going to grow. And so for the young docs that are listening in, you're not too young to run for a position. You're not too young to put your name out there in your governor's office or with your member of the House of Representatives who could potentially say, hey, I've got a good candidate for the chiropractic board in Arkansas or in California or in Washington, whatever it might be. But we've got to be more visible. If we're not at the table, we're insignificant.
Yeah.
But when we're at the table, they're starting to listen because our paradigm makes sense.
Yes.
The other paradigm.
And it always has made sense. And especially now it's needed more than ever with everything.
It's starting to make sense to the lay people.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. It made sense to us who experienced it, but others just ask, well, chiropractor, neck pain, back pain. Yeah. Now they're starting to understand the importance of neurological function, the fact that the nervous system is the primary system of the human body. It controls every single function. And when they start understanding that, they start making different decisions.
Yep.
That was why I wrote that book, Brian. And of course, I've done a bunch of books since, and because I love to write, and I've helped a lot of people actually get published, do a chapter or do a story. The Art of Being Healthy so far has 3 volumes. There's hundreds of thousands of copies actually around the globe. And my goal around that was to help chiropractors raise their level of credibility.
Yeah.
And once you're published, you have a different credibility level, especially, in your community. And even if you're in a big city, you can say, okay, I'm in New York, there's a population of whatever it is, 6 million or more, I'm going to get lost. But even in New York, you're in a community.
Yep.
You've got your community, you got your people, you've got your circle of influence. You got your Rotary Club, if you remember that, or your Kiwanis Club, or your BNI group, or whatever it might be. You've got your community, you've got your gym, your CrossFit facility, you've got your golf club, your golf course, rather. When you start to become more visible with those people, they start to introduce you to other people. So now your circle of influence, instead of being this big, grows to this big, and all of a sudden it's this big.
Yep.
And my whole goal in helping people get published was to, like I said, to increase their level of credibility and then to increase their circle of influence.
Love it.
It's the only way we're going to create change.
Yeah. And I so appreciate your energy and your drive and how you have steered it towards like growing the profession exponentially.
Oh, I'm alive because of it. I had a fantastic 25 years in practice. If somebody's questioning, well, and I had a huge practice. Jim Parker was my mentor. So I had a huge practice literally right out of the gate. I didn't go back to practice after I got well. Number one, initially, it took 2 years to get completely well. And I thought, well, I can't practice in my home community. I sold my practice. That would be unethical to think I'm going to open down the street and compete with the people who bought my practice. So I thought, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do now? I guess I just got to find a different town, move somewhere else and open up another practice. And I thought that all that week. And on the Saturday, I was cleaning our garage and I was putting my son, Jason, Dr. Jason LaMarche, who's a chiropractor in the Chicago area, Naperville. I was putting his furniture from his undergrad, because he had finished undergrad, onto the loft. And I got the mattress. I got the box spring up there and I was trying to get the mattress onto the loft for storage purposes for, the summer period. And I couldn't get it up there. So I decided to go up the step ladder and I put my foot on the part of the ladder that says, do not step.
Of course.
One foot on that, 1 foot, 2 rungs below. And I pushed the mattress. And as I pushed the mattress, the ladder flipped and I went horizontal and I landed like this on the mattress. I had 6 rib fractures. 3 of them were right off at the costotransverse junction with about a full centimeter of separation at 7, 8, and 9. And so I was in a medically induced coma for 12 days. I was in bed for 3 months. It took that long to heal. And I was like, okay, God, I guess I'm not supposed to go back into practice. What am I supposed to do with the rest of my life?
Yeah.
And of course, the rest is history.
And here we are.
I got recruited and here I am, 20 years later.
And will you be speaking at the Life Extravaganza?
You know what? It's interesting you asked that question. If you had asked me that question yesterday morning at 11 o'clock, I would have said no.
Okay.
If you had asked me the question at 11:30, I'd have to say yes.
Awesome.
So our theme is chiropractic, just really improving humanity. And my director of postgrad, we had one session before the final session. She said, we don't have a speaker in that session. We got to roll this out. Why don't you speak there? I said, you know what? Okay, I will. Because when you're the one preparing a program, you have a tendency to not necessarily put yourself on it.
Yeah, because you're
yes, I will be the second to last speaker. We haven't confirmed the last speaker. It will be Dr. Scott with one other person that we're hoping to be able to confirm this week. But it's going to be a great program.
Wonderful. Well, I'm excited you're going to be on stage because I'll be there as well, and not on stage, but I'll be there with Genesis and just yucking it up with all our brothers and sisters. So thank you so much for sharing this and like giving us these updates. And I'm excited for Genesis Nation to see what's going on with life and be able to get our profession to participate at a higher level. But again, being the change that we want to see in the world starts with us. Right?
We're here to serve. And I've said that I didn't give you the proper theme. Is chiropractic improving the human experience. Is actually the theme of our 2023 Life Vision Extravaganza.
Awesome.
And so at the end, I'll be sort of wrapping up before our final speaker. But my goal is to tell the story of how does chiropractic improve the human experience? How can you, as a chiropractor, going back to your practice on Monday, how can you improve the human experience with your practice members and your community, and grow your practice and have a bigger impact on your community and save lives along the way?
I love it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, my friend. Always a pleasure to chat with you, and I'll look forward to seeing you live at Life Vision Extravaganza, September 28th to the 30th.
Yes, sir. And we'll put all the information down below, so we'll have nice clickable items for y'all. Take care,
Thanks,
Doc.
Dr. Brian.